Your book goes on to talk more about the Islamic civilization, political structures, art, literature. The Islamic people have been famous for their carpets. For one thing, they're required to pray on carpets, so they have made really beautiful carpets. And even when they're traveling, they'll spread out a carpet and have a prayer time during their travels. And again, their carpets have been. And something I do want you to remember about literature, the famous stories of the Arabian Nights are Islamic in origin. Two stories that come to mind was Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, and another one, let's see, Alibaba and 40 Thieves, and it's featured the Open Sesame. And right now I can't think of the other one, but a couple of stories. But the Arabian Nights is their big contribution to literature, and their stories were, I mean, most of you probably read them. How many have read any of Arabian Nights stories? Anyway, their literature has come down to us from that time, and it's found in a lot of kids' books or reading books in elementary school, even in high school. They were great scientists, particularly. They set up academies that fostered learning. They encouraged learning. Folk, but for just a little teeny bit, it would have been them that overspread the whole globe instead of the Europeans, but just for a little bit. Now, in astronomy, I used to, when I was a kid, read book after book on astronomy. I mean, I guess I was nuts about space travel. And I inevitably ran across the Arabs, and the Arabs were considered the last of the great medieval astronomers. And in astronomy, they were far, far ahead of their European counterparts. But they had one weakness. They still clung to the Ptolemaic system of astronomy. And where Ptolemy believed the Earth was the center of the universe, and all the universe went around the Earth. And this was believed for 1,800 years, spoke by everybody, including the Arabs, and it greatly set a limit on how much we could learn about astronomy. We really did not begin to learn about astronomy until Copernicus and Kepler decided the Earth is not the center of the universe. Then Galileo invented the telescope that somewhat decisively proved the issue. But the Arab astronomers were the best astronomers in the world in their time. They set up an observatory at Baghdad. They knew the Earth was round. They even attempted to measure the size of the Earth, which was something that a lot of persons were doing at the time. They built on the work of, in medicine, they built on the work of the Greek physician Galen. And they've made a science out of medicine, something that Europeans did not do. And they compiled a medical encyclopedia that emphasized that certain diseases were contagious and how to prevent the spread. They did not know about bacteria, but they said, hey, maybe diseases can be prevented by cleanliness, among other things, or isolation, quarantining. And in that regard, they were somewhat ahead of Europeans in their time. All right, there was a story in my medieval textbook when I was in graduate school at UT, University of Tennessee, about a Muslim doctor who had visited a sick patient. The patient had a fever. So the Muslim doctor decided, okay, I'm going to give him a good diet, put a cold cloth on his head, and give him plenty of liquids, and the fever started to subside. Okay. In came a European doctor, shoved the Muslim man aside. He said, this man can't cure them. And he said, well, the fever is caused by a demon. It's in her leg, so chop off her leg. Chopped off her leg, and the patient expired outright. The Muslim doctor said, I learned from their medicines matters of which previously I had been ignorant. Basically, he was poking sarcasm. Folks, that's how far ahead how far ahead the Muslims once were of their European counterparts. But today, the wealthy Muslims, when they get sick, they'll come to a Western doctor for treatment. They'll come to the United States for treatment. rather than go to their own doctors. It was not always so. All right. Your book mentions, on bottom page 203, that the spurt of interest the Arabs had in science proved to be somewhat abortive. Just simply, they reached a point in their scientific knowledge where that their science began to come into conflict with their theology. So what they do, throw out science and embrace their theology. And this is a problem that Christians have had. Sometimes Christianity seems to come into conflict with science, and Islam had the same problem. All right. Islamic art, they have produced some really high quality mosques. Yeah, a Muslim place of worship is called a mosque. Including the Dome of the Rock pictured on page 208, which in March of 1985 I happened to go to Israel and I saw it, photographed it, went in through it. They allow people to go through it. The inside is the bare rock, supposedly where Abraham offered up Isaac, and the same place where Muhammad descended on a winged horse into heaven. So that it's the dome covering that rock, called the Dome of the Rock.